Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. This is Emily Pugmire with the Sagebrush Art School. I'd like to teach you about how to draw a wolf today. We are using a photograph taken by Joel Sartore. We will be focusing on first is the grid method to find our proportions correctly. Second, we will be looking at the values. And third, and finally, we will be working on the texture. First things first, make sure you've got everything in front of you, including your reference material. And if you have it printed in black and white, that'll make it even easier to see the values. This grid I'm using today is a little bit different than the one I used in the previous video because I've added a couple extra lines just to help me with the proportions. Remember, you can set up your grid any way you want. Just make sure that what you have set up on your reference material matches exactly what you have set up on your drawing paper. Often this is kind of a tedious process of double checking you've got your measurements right for your grid, and sometimes it's hard to hold back on drawing and figure that out because it takes a little bit of time, but it'll pay off in the end if you can get those measurements to match up. I'm plotting out my lines now and making sure that my outside dimensions of the wolf match up with the reference material I'm looking at. Once you get that out of the way, you can start playing around with the value ranges inside the wolf. We made value range scales in class a while back, so if you have that or something similar to that handy, that'll help you sort of spot the different values that you're looking at. I've picked a few that I think are important, and one is the lighter range on the fur, and then a couple middle range values, one on the muzzle and one sort of behind the eye. We also know that the background is going to be as dark as we can make it with our pencil, so that also gives us an outer limit. Now I'm just using a number 2 pencil because I think that's what I've given all my students to take home with them. So if you have some softer or harder pencils, then that can help you get a wider range of values. But I'm going to do this drawing with the thought in mind that you just have a number 2 pencil with you. Also, I'm right-handed, and so I haven't put a lot of drawing where my wrist is going to be resting, or my hand is resting. I've started to do the darkest part on the left side, knowing that I'm probably not going to be touching that much. But if you're left-handed and you're attempting this drawing, you may want to wait and do the darkest parts or a lot of it until the very end when that's the last thing you do, just so you don't smudge too much. This process very much is a layering process. So you can see I'm laying down a value with the pencil, and then I'm sort of rubbing it with the soft cloth I have and spreading it around to start to establish some value ranges. And then I'm going back with the pencil and drawing in some darker lines and kind of going back and forth until I get a nice set of value ranges. I'm also using the eraser to help lighten some things that have gotten a little too dark and to add some highlights. Now it's time to think about texture. And we can use the eraser and the pencil to add the texture. And that's really when you start going in with some sharper lines and start to add some distinct hair and fur and more details in the areas that you want people to focus on. So I'm focusing on around the eye, the ears, the nose, and the mouth, not so much on the rest of the fur on his body, but the part that I want people to notice the most. If you want to take it a little further, you can start adding some colored pencils to it. I had a little fun with that at the end. And if I really wanted to take it further, I would probably take a nice black colored pencil and fill in the negative space around the outside of the wolf head with a much darker value. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.